Most people who think they're at level 3 are actually at level 1, not metaphorically. Literally, and I'm going to prove it with a single number that most financial advisors will never show you, because the moment you understand it, you stop needing them to manage your anxiety. Here's what makes this worse. The financial industry didn't accidentally create this confusion. The confusion is the product. Think about that for a second. 60% of Americans describe themselves as financially comfortable. 60%. Meanwhile, 56% of Americans couldn't cover a $1,000 emergency without borrowing money or going into debt. That's from Bankrate's 2024 Annual Emergency Savings Report. Those two statistics cannot both be true at the same time unless one of them is a self-delusion. And it's not the Bankrate survey. Here's what this video is actually about. There are exactly 5 levels of wealth. Not 4, not 6, not the 7 habits of financially free people or whatever someone is selling this week. 5. Most content on this topic is either too vague to be useful, or it's designed to make you feel better about where you currently are, so you keep engaging, keep clicking, keep buying the course. I'm going to give you the actual framework with real numbers, real thresholds, and real math. And I'm going to tell you which level you're actually on right now, even if the answer stings. By the way, I built a free early retirement calculator because most online ones are mathematically wrong. It uses BlackRock and Vanguard logic to expose the weak points in your plan. And I only ask for your email to send the report, so I don't store any of your financial data link in the description. Now there's one metaphor I want you to hold on to for this entire video, because it's going to come back as both an explanation and eventually a punchline. You know how in video games you can buy cosmetic upgrades, skins, outfits, accessories? Your character looks like a level 40 warrior. The sword is glowing, the armor has spikes, but under the skin, it's still a level 1 character with starter stats. You look the part, and you cannot survive the first real boss fight. That's what's happening to tens of millions of American households right now. They've got the level 3 skin, the nice car, the house in the good zip code, the LinkedIn title that says senior director of something important, but the underlying stats, still level 1. Still one job loss away from financial collapse. The levels I'm about to describe aren't about what your life looks like from the outside. They're about the underlying code, the actual numbers, and the fake sword breaks every single time. This is going to matter a lot more in a few minutes when I introduce you to a specific number called your survival runway. But first, let me show you why most people misjudge their own level and why that mistake quietly costs them a decade of their financial life. Level 1 is what I call financial vulnerability. And this is where the first uncomfortable truth lives. Most people assume level 1 means broke. It doesn't. Level 1 is defined by one condition and one condition only. You cannot survive a financial disruption without borrowing money or cutting something essential. That's the entire test. And when you apply it honestly, the numbers get ugly fast. The Federal Reserve's 2022 Survey of Consumer Finances, the most comprehensive wealth study conducted in the United States, found that the median American household net worth is $192,700. That sounds reasonable, almost reassuring. Here's the problem. Strip out home equity. Remove the value locked in a house you can't sell without also needing somewhere to live. What's left? Liquid assets, brokerage accounts, savings, minus non-mortgage debt, collapses to somewhere around $40,000 for the median household. $40,000 when you're spending $5,000 to $7,000 a month maintaining a middle-class lifestyle is less than 8 months of runway. And that's before a medical event, before a car dies on a Tuesday, before a kid needs something unexpected. I want you to picture a guy named Marcus. Marcus is 44 years old. He makes $180,000 a year as a regional VP at a logistics company in Atlanta. He has a 4-bedroom house in a suburb with good schools, 2 cars, 2 kids in private school, and a 401k with roughly $90,000 in it. He eats at good restaurants. He takes 1 international vacation per year. He considers himself, I would estimate, solidly in the comfortable middle to upper range. He has the level 3 skin Maybe the level 4 skin if he's feeling generous with himself that day. Marcus is on level 1. Because when you look at his actual numbers, and I've seen enough versions of Marcus to reconstruct this from memory, his monthly expenses run around $11,000. His liquid savings outside of his retirement account are around $14,000. That's 6 weeks of runway. 6 weeks. One bad quarter at his company, one restructuring. One, we're eliminating your position effective Friday. And Marcus is borrowing from his 401k within 90 days, taking the 10% early withdrawal penalty, paying ordinary income tax on top of that, and permanently destroying 15 years of compounding that can never be rebuilt. Not because Marcus is irresponsible, because the skin looked like security and the stats were always level 1. The telltale sign of level 1 is not income. It's the gap between your monthly spending and your accessible liquid reserves. If that gap is under 6 months, not in theory, not in a retirement account, you'll get penalized 40% to access. But in actual cash or near cash, you can reach in 24 hours, you are on level 1. The lifestyle is completely irrelevant. The job title is irrelevant. The zip code is irrelevant. 6 months, that's the floor. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Level 2 is financial stability. And the reason I have to explain this carefully is that most people think moving from level 1 to level 2 is a math problem. It is almost entirely a behavioral problem. The math of level 2 is simple. A fully funded emergency reserve of 3 to 6 months of actual expenses, not income. Expenses plus consumer debt at a manageable level. No credit card balance carrying interest month to month. Minimal car debt, a mortgage that isn't quietly strangling you. That's it. The formula is simple. The behavior is brutal. Here's why. The moment most people receive a raise, their spending rises to match it within 18 months. This isn't speculation. It's documented in behavioral economics literature going back decades. Part of it is hedonic adaptation, Daniel Kahneman's work on how quickly we normalize new circumstances. But there's a simpler explanation that I think is more honest. Your social circle is your spending benchmark. You roughly earn what your friends earn. You roughly spend what your friends spend. And every raise gets celebrated by buying the next thing your income bracket expects you to own. A newer car, a bigger house, a school district with the right reputation. The credit card balance that was supposed to reach 0 gets pushed to next month because you worked hard this year and you deserve this vacation. This is the treadmill that keeps 80% of high earners permanently on level 1 or teetering at the edge of level 2 for their entire career. Not low income, lifestyle drift. The problem is not that you aren't earning enough. The actual problem is that the gap between what you earn and what you keep is functionally 0 regardless of what the paycheck says. Sociologists actually have a term for this: affluent poverty. You are statistically wealthy by income and statistically fragile by net worth. And the United States is the single most efficient country on the planet at manufacturing and sustaining affluent poverty because the entire consumer economy is engineered to ensure that every dollar you earn above your basic needs converts directly into someone else's revenue. Oh good, you got promoted. Here's a car lease. Here's a kitchen renovation. Here's a private school that signals exactly the right things to exactly the right people. Level 2 is about stopping the treadmill. And you don't stop a treadmill by running faster. You stop it by stepping off, which means deliberately, mathematically, and without apology, building a gap between what comes in and what goes out, and then defending that gap the way you would defend anything that matters. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you what happens at level 4 that almost nobody in financial content actually explains clearly, because it involves a specific threshold calculation that most people never reach because they got fooled by level 3. But first, you need to understand why level 3 is the most dangerous level on the entire board. Level 3 is financial security. And this is where I need to tell you something that might actually make you a little frustrated. Because level 3 looks exactly like success. Level 3 is where your investments are growing, you have your emergency fund, you're maxing your 401k, and you have a brokerage account with maybe $200,000 in it, maybe $250,000. You feel like you're doing the right things. You are technically doing the right things, and you are still if you're not careful, one bad decision away from permanently setting back your trajectory by years. The specific deception at level 3 is this. Your investments are big enough to feel significant, but not yet big enough to be self-sustaining. $200,000 at a 7% average annual return generates $14,000 a year in growth. Not enough to live on. Not even enough to take a year off. What it is, though, is big enough to make you feel wealthy. And feeling wealthy makes you take risks you would never take at level 1 or level 2, because the stakes feel lower. You think you have a cushion. The cushion makes you reckless. There's a woman I want to tell you about. Call her Janet. This is a composite, a pattern I've observed often enough that I'd call it a behavioral law rather than a coincidence. Janet reached level 3 at 41, $250,000 in investments, no consumer debt, a stable job in healthcare administration. She was proud of herself. She should have been. And then someone in her professional network pitched her on a real estate deal, a short-term rental property in a vacation market that was, quote, exploding. The numbers looked reasonable on paper. 8% cash-on-cash return. Strong occupancy projections. Janet put $60,000 into it, a deposit on a condo in a market she'd visited once. You know where this goes. The market softened. Short-term rental regulations tightened in that municipality. The management company had a catastrophic off-season. 2 years later, Janet sold at a 30% loss. She walked away with $42,000 of her original $60,000. She didn't lose everything, but she lost $18,000 of compounding, plus the opportunity cost of that capital over 2 years, money that was supposed to be quietly building toward level 4. Instead, it funded someone else's bad business model. The trap at level 3 is not that the investment was necessarily bad. The trap is that level 3 gave Janet enough confidence to be dangerous. Her money felt real. It looked like a foundation. It wasn't yet producing income on its own. It was still a number on a screen, but it felt substantial enough to justify risk. And that psychological shift from I am protecting what I have to I can now play offense happens at level 3 before the math actually supports it. You think the problem is that the investment was bad. The actual problem is that you used your wealth and progress as psychological collateral for a decision you weren't yet capitalized to absorb. By the way, hit subscribe if you like the content. Otherwise, YouTube's algorithm may never show you my videos again. Now, I want to return briefly to Marcus from Atlanta because he's been sitting in the background of this video and I promised you his story would resolve. Marcus is going to face a decision in the next few years, probably triggered by a restructuring at his company or a health scare or a milestone birthday, or all three, that will either push him toward level 4 or strand him permanently. I'll tell you exactly how it resolves before this video ends. But to understand what his options actually are, you need to understand level 4. Level 4 is financial independence. And this is the level that the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, got partially right and significantly wrong. And the way they got it wrong has caused a lot of people to either aim at the wrong number or give up entirely. The standard FIRE definition of financial independence is your investment portfolio equals 25 times your annual expenses. This comes from the Trinity study. A 1998 research paper from Trinity University in Texas that analyzed historical stock and bond portfolios and determined that a 4% annual withdrawal rate has historically sustained a 30-year retirement without depleting the principal. 25 times expenses. 4% rule. That's the formula. Here's what the FIRE movement consistently underemphasized. The Trinity study was calibrated for a 30-year retirement horizon. If you retire at 42, you potentially need 50 plus years of portfolio sustainability. The math changes materially. A 3.3% withdrawal rate, which corresponds to roughly 30 times your annual expenses, is the number most current financial researchers recommend for early retirees with a long horizon. That is not a trivial difference. If your annual expenses are $80,000, the standard FIRE target is $2 million. The adjusted target is $2.4 million, $400,000 more. That's years of additional contributions for most people. And here's what almost nobody in financial content addresses directly. The psychological shift that happens when you cross into level 4 is more disorienting than anyone prepares you for. Your entire adult life, your identity has been organized around earning, around productivity, output, contribution, and then your portfolio starts generating more per year than your salary. And that's strange. It's genuinely destabilizing. There's documented research on this. It shows up in lottery winner studies, in qualitative interviews with early retirees, in the accounts of people who crossed the financial independence threshold at 45 and found themselves profoundly unmoored. A significant portion of people who reach level 4 become more anxious, not less, in the first 2 years. Not because they made a mistake, because the framework they'd used to navigate the world, I work, I earn, I have a place in the structure, is suddenly obsolete. And they didn't build a replacement framework. They built a portfolio. They forgot to build a life. I'm not saying don't pursue level 4. I'm saying go in with your eyes open about what changes and what doesn't. Let me now give you the specific dollar thresholds for level 4, because the vagueness around these numbers is one of the most frustrating features of mainstream financial content. If your annual household spending is $50,000, level 4 entry using the standard rule is $1.5 million in investable assets. Using the adjusted rule for longevity, it's $1.65 million. If you're spending $80,000 a year, it's $2 million to $2.4 million. If you're spending $120,000, which is roughly where Marcus lands with his current lifestyle, the level 4 entry is $3 million to $3.6 million. Now here's the math that will either encourage you or make you want to close the tab. If Marcus has $100,000 invested today at 44, and he contributes $2,000 a month at a 7% average annual return, he reaches $3 million in approximately 23 years. He's 67. He did it. He reached level 4 at traditional retirement age. That's not a failure. That's the system working more or less as intended. But if Marcus redirects $2,000 additional dollars per month by eliminating the car lease, renegotiating the school situation, closing one of the lifestyle gaps, and pushes his monthly investment contribution to $4,000, he reaches $3 million in roughly 16 years. He's 60. He retired early, comfortably, before Social Security, with a portfolio that sustains itself. The difference between those two outcomes is $2,000 a month directed at investments instead of consumption. And the return on that $2,000 is not a financial return. It's 7 years of Marcus's life. 7 years he doesn't spend sitting in traffic on Monday morning. 7 years of his health, his time, his ability to choose what Tuesday looks like. $2,000 a month bought him 7 years of his own existence back. The skin doesn't matter. The stats are everything. Here's what nobody is actually telling you, and stay with me, because this next part changes everything about how you think about level 3. The real obstacle between level 3 and level 4 isn't the math. You can do this math in 10 minutes. I literally just did it live. The real obstacle is what behavioral economists call lifestyle lock-in. Lifestyle lock-in is when your social obligations, your school district, your car, your spouse's expectations, your children's activities, and your own professional identity become so entangled with a specific spending level that reducing that spending doesn't feel like a financial adjustment. It feels like a demotion, like admitting something went wrong, like walking back a version of yourself you spent years constructing. And lifestyle lock-in is maximally dangerous at level 3, specifically because at level 3, you have enough money to maintain the illusion indefinitely. You can service the debt. You can stay subscribed to everything. You can keep flying business class on points while your brokerage account stagnates at $250,000 for 15 years. The number stays the same. The lifestyle machine keeps running. And nobody from the outside can tell the difference between someone who is 3 years from level 4 and someone who is 15 years from level 4, because the skin looks identical. Let me show you what 15 years of stagnation at level 3 actually costs, because I want this to land as a concrete number rather than a vague warning. $250,000 at 7% annual return, compounded with zero additional contributions, over 15 years becomes $693,000. If instead you added $2,000 a month over those same 15 years, that portfolio becomes $1.4 million. The gap between those two outcomes is over $700,000, more than twice your starting amount, evaporated into car payments, renovation decisions, and the aggregate cost of appearing successful to people who are not tracking your balance sheet. But Tom, everyone around me is making these choices. Yes. And everyone around you has a level 3 skin on a level 1 character. Now, level 5. This is where the video gets genuinely interesting and also slightly uncomfortable, because level 5 is not more of level 4. It's a fundamentally different game. Level 5 is financial freedom, not independence freedom. The distinction is precise. Financial independence means your portfolio sustains your lifestyle. Financial freedom means your wealth grows faster than you can spend it, and you have enough capital that your decisions affect other people's financial futures, not your own monthly budget. Level 5 is not a destination you reach by saving harder. It's a destination you reach by building something that generates compounding returns beyond the ceiling of any salary. The rough entry point for level 5 is a net worth above $10 million. At that threshold, a 4% drawdown is $400,000 annually, well above the lifestyle requirements of 99% of American households. And the principal continues growing faster than you withdraw. You are effectively printing money in slow motion. Your primary financial concerns shift entirely. It's no longer accumulation. It's preservation, allocation, and tax structure. According to the Federal Reserve, approximately 1% of American households have a net worth above $10.8 million. That's roughly 1.3 million households out of approximately 130 million. It is not zero, but it is close. Here's what the financial independence community consistently glosses over about level 5. The people who reach it almost never got there through portfolio optimization alone. They got there because they built a business or held meaningful equity in something that appreciated dramatically. A company they co-founded or were an early employee of, with a favorable equity structure that paid out in an acquisition or IPO. Real estate purchased in the right city at the right decade and sold into a generational price spike. A concentrated investment that was specific, informed, and paid off. Level 5 almost always involves a period of deliberate concentration risk, betting a significant amount on one position, followed by diversification once that position validated, which is the direct opposite of what most mainstream investment advice tells you to do. Most advice says diversify from day one, and that advice is completely correct for protecting what you already have. It is not the path to extraordinary outcomes. It is the path to not experiencing extraordinary losses, which is a different thing. Diversification is level 3 to level 4 strategy. Concentration is level 4 to level 5 strategy. Confusing the two, or applying one when you need the other, is one of the more expensive errors in personal finance. Now, I want to return to Marcus and close his loop, because his story resolves here. Marcus, at 44, earning $180,000 a year with 6 weeks of liquid runway and a level 3 skin on a level 1 character. Marcus has a binary choice. It's not complicated. He can defend his current lifestyle, continue coasting on a 401k that might reach $700,000 by 67, and retire with a modest income that requires Social Security to close the gap. That's not a catastrophe. That's roughly what the system was designed to deliver if you do the minimum. Or, and this is the path that requires exactly one decision, not 100 decisions, he can close the spending gap, redirect that money into consistent, undramatic, boring investments in index funds, and reach level 4 somewhere in his early 60s, with genuine options about how he allocates the last third of his life. What Marcus will almost certainly not do is reach level 5. And that's completely fine. Level 5 requires a specific kind of risk tolerance, a specific kind of opportunity, and a specific kind of timing that converges for a small number of people. Anyone who tells you level 5 is purely the result of discipline and smart choices is either rationalizing their own luck or selling you a masterclass. It's partly skill, partly system, partly timing, and honestly, partly circumstances that had nothing to do with effort. The goal for Marcus, and for whoever is watching this right now, sitting somewhere between level 2 and level 3, feeling the low-grade financial anxiety that comes from knowing the gap between where you are and where you should be, is level 4. Level 4 is achievable. Level 4 is mathematical. Level 4 does not require you to be a genius about markets, to pick winning stocks, or to discover some edge the rest of the world missed. It requires you to stop spending the difference between your income and your actual needs. Here's something that makes me mildly and persistently irritated about how wealth levels get discussed in most financial content. They're presented as inspirational. Here are the 5 levels. Isn't it exciting to imagine reaching level 5? No, that's not useful. What's useful is the diagnostic. What level am I actually on right now, today? And more importantly, what is the single behavior, the single spending pattern, the single decision I'm making on autopilot that is actively keeping me from moving up? For level 1 to level 2, build the 6-month reserve. Nothing else matters until this exists. Not investing strategy, not asset allocation, not paying extra on the mortgage, not crypto, not anything. 6 months of liquid, accessible reserves. Because the moment a real crisis arrives and that reserve doesn't exist, you will destroy years of financial progress in 90 days. The 401k penalty alone, 10% early withdrawal, plus ordinary income tax, means taking money out early can cost you 30 to 40% of the principal in a single transaction. Years of compounding erased because you didn't have $14,000 in a savings account. For level 2 to level 3, automate the investment gap. This is the single rule I actually live by, and it's the only investing advice that works consistently for people who have a human brain that is wired to spend in the present and save in theory. Every raise, every bonus, every extra dollar of revenue, a minimum of 50% goes to investments before it touches your lifestyle, not to a savings account earning 3%, to a low-cost, broad market index fund. You set the automatic transfer on the day your paycheck lands. You set it slightly before you've adjusted your spending to the new income level. You make it structurally inconvenient to reverse, and then you forget you did it. Behavioral economists call this a commitment device. I call it the only system that actually works for people who have competing present and future selves, which is everyone, including me. Let me give you the math one more time, because I want this number to become a reference point rather than an abstraction. 35 years old, $50,000 already invested. Monthly contributions of $1,500 into a broad market index fund at a 7% average annual return. At 65, that portfolio is worth $1.9 million. 30 years, $1,500 a month, $1.9 million. That is level 4 territory for someone spending $65,000 to $75,000 annually in retirement. And here's what $1,500 a month actually looks like in real life. It's a car payment you declined. It's a house upgrade you delayed by 2 years. It's one renovation project that stayed on the idea board. While I'm on specific numbers because I promised I would never say fees add up without giving you the actual math over 30 years, a 1% annual fee on $200,000 costs you approximately $170,000 in lost compounding, not fees adding up. A wealth level, a single percentage point on a modest account over time is the difference between arriving at level 3 and arriving at level 4. The cheapest index funds at Vanguard and Fidelity charge between 3 and 5 basis points annually. Some legacy mutual funds still charge 1.2 to 1.5%. That is not a small difference dressed up in decimal notation. That is the cost of a level. For level 3 to level 4, stop making creative financial decisions. I know that sounds like strange advice from someone who runs an investing channel, but stay with me. At level 3, you have enough money to feel sophisticated. You are now in conversations about real estate syndications, angel investing rounds, crypto protocols, alternative assets, private equity feeder funds. Every single one of these conversations for a level 3 person is a structural trap. Not because the assets are inherently bad, but because at level 3, your primary job, the only job that matters, is consistent compounding toward a specific threshold. Every dollar redirected into a speculative or illiquid position is a dollar not reliably compounding at 7% in an index fund. And because of how loss aversion works, the speculative positions most people take at level 3 will statistically underperform what they would have made doing nothing creative. Boring wins. The bridge from level 3 to level 4 is relentlessly boring. It's index funds. It's consistent contributions in market downturns and market highs. It's not touching the portfolio for non-emergency reasons. It's an expense ratio below 10 basis points. Vanguard's own participant data shows that the least active accounts, the ones with the fewest transactions per year, outperform the most active accounts with remarkable consistency. And there's a famous internal fidelity analysis, which I've never seen published officially, but has been cited by enough credible researchers that I believe it's real, showing that the best performing customer accounts were either forgotten or belonged to deceased account holders. The dead people beat the active traders. You are trying to beat the dead people. The dead people have one systematic advantage. They don't watch financial news. But Tom, the market is at all-time highs right now. The market is almost always at all-time highs. That's what a market that trends upward over decades looks like in practice. Statistically, new all-time highs are reached in a majority of trading years over long horizons. Every year that someone waited for the right time because the market felt overextended was a year of compounding. They surrendered to a cash account earning less than inflation. Cash, at 3% annual inflation over 30 years, loses roughly 40% of its real purchasing power. You are not protecting yourself by waiting. You are losing in slow motion with the illusion of safety. Now here's the thing that I want to be the actual takeaway from this video. The 5 levels of wealth are not really about money. They're about options. Level 1 means you have no options when a crisis arrives. You are fully at the mercy of whatever happens next. Level 2 means you have the option to survive a crisis without permanently destroying your financial future. Level 3 means you have the option to stop working within the decade, but only if you make specific decisions and avoid specific traps. Level 4 means the option to stop working, period, on a timeline you control rather than one your employer controls. Level 5 means your options are essentially unconstrained by financial considerations, and your problems shift to allocation, meaning, legacy, and what you want to build next. Every level is a different quantity of options. Every decision to upgrade the skin instead of upgrading the stats, every car lease you didn't need, every house that was slightly too expensive for the budget, every renovation that was a lifestyle decision dressed as a financial one is a conscious exchange. Fewer future options for the appearance of current success. Marcus is going to make that decision. He's probably making it right now without fully registering it as the decision it is. And the outcome isn't mysterious. If he defends the lifestyle, he works until 67 with less cushion than he thinks. If he closes the gap and redirects $2,000 a month, he has real options at 60. The math is not ambiguous. The behavior is the whole game. The fake sword looks impressive. It breaks on the first real boss. And the first real boss is always something you didn't see coming. A layoff, a health event, a market downturn timed wrong that arrives when you're wearing the level 3 skin with level 1 stats and wondering why the armor isn't holding. Here are the 3 things I want you to actually do after this video. And I'm going to be specific enough that you can't vague motion your way through them. First, calculate your real survival runway today, right now. Liquid assets divided by monthly expenses. If the number is below 6 months, your entire financial priority list resets. Everything else is secondary until that number crosses 6. Not your investment strategy, not your retirement projections, not your asset allocation. 6 months of liquid reserves. Build the floor first. Second, identify the 1 or 2 spending commitments that are keeping your investment gap at 0. It's almost never 20 small things. It's almost always 1 or 2 large decisions that feel structural but are actually choices. The car that's slightly more than it needs to be. The school tuition that's as much about signaling as education. The house that was bought at the top of what the mortgage broker said you could theoretically afford. Find the one or two. Sit with the discomfort of what changing them would mean. That discomfort is your lifestyle lock-in talking. Third, automate the gap before you adjust your spending to the next income level. If you got a raise last month and haven't set an automatic transfer to investments yet, that raise is already spent in your nervous system's accounting. Set the transfer. Make it slightly uncomfortable, not punishing, but uncomfortable enough that you notice it. The mild monthly sting is the mechanism. It means it's working. You are not trying to get rich quickly. You are trying to upgrade your stats while the majority of your income bracket spends their capital on skins. Lazy investing built more fortune than crypto memes. The fake sword breaks every time.